Hi and welcome to the next part of this Build With Me project. That we're making this 1 meter tall RGB LED tower that I got from Banggood. The earlier parts will be linked to on the screen somewhere. In this one we're going to assemble all of these rings of RGB LEDs into a tower that will mount on top of this base plate, circuit board and interconnect board. These are mounted using these long fiberglass rods that have been supplied. In the kit there was 18 of these. I think we only need 17, but they're about a meter long, and basically they go through the holes, the larger holes that you can see in the ring of LEDs, and then will connect into holes and be glued into this interconnector circuit board. There's 16 holes all the way around. So the first job of today will be actually sorting all of these rings out into order, and then we can start threading them on to these fibres. So that's the first job of the day. So with these LEDs, the rings, on the underneath of them, they all have a number on them. So this is the order, starting from the bottom, working the way up. So on some of them, such as these first few ones that I've put on, that I've just stacked up here, they have just the one number. But many of them have, let me show you this one, two numbers, and in fact some have three numbers on them. That just means that this can be either layer number 29 or layer number 11. So it's fairly easy to be able to get them. Some of them are identical, whereas these first ones, as you can see, I've only got one number on them. They're unique. They're the only ones of that size. So what I did, I've just put one fibre through these, and I'm very deliberately put it through the hole next to the number for each ring. That's for a sanity check for myself, just to make sure that I've got all of them in the right order before I start putting in any more of these fibres. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you can't really see them very well. 15, 16, and 32 is the last one, and it's printed in the middle. So at least I know I've got them all in the correct order. I can now start the fiddly process of trying to get more than one fibre through, getting them all aligned. So there we go, all strung together. Now can you imagine getting it to this point and then realising, oh dear, I've got some of them mixed up. That will be a bit annoying. That's why it's good just to take your time beforehand, just to double check, yeah, all of these are numbered in the right sequence. Of course we've got these three small ones which will go on the top. They get linked with just a single fibre. I'm leaving those for the moment, just focusing on our main stack of LEDs. Now of course, according to the instructions, we need to space these out. They're not as close as this. This is certainly not a meter tall. This would only be, I don't know, 400 mil tall, maybe something like that. but these are spaced out approximately 25 to 30 millimeters. So you're given the choice. You can put the spacing that you want to do, and I've designed a little spacer that's being 3D printed as I film this, and it's going to allow me to space these all evenly. So in order to get all of these into our Interconnect PCB, eventually these will be actually glued into place, but it's fairly a simple process. All the holes are just a little bit oversized, and so you can actually rotate these fibers, because the LED PCB rings do kind of grip them because of the changing of their size. So you just rotate them, and then you're able to, as you're just rotating them, you're able to move them into place, and they will go in. And then that's, I think, all of them done. Let's just rotate around this just to make sure all are in place, which they all seem to be. And of course the instructions tell you to make sure that you've got the speaker installed first, because otherwise this part would not work. Or this part would work, but you wouldn't be able to get to the speaker. So now all these rings can be set into place. What we also will have to do is actually run some wires up all the way alongside these fibers, each fiber, and there's a little tiny hole in the PCBs for that to go through. So that'll be the next to string those up into place. And of course gluing these bottom stakes in. So this is the bundle of wire that they give you in the kit. It's a solid core wire, and after about 4 months of searching I found an end and was able to confirm it is solid core by stripping some off. And so according to the instructions, they tell you basically to strip this down in sections so that you can run basically a meter of stripped wire, bare tinned copper wire, up alongside each of these fibre supports. Now this is very fine. I haven't measured it. It would be something to do. So we've got our digital calipers here, and let's measure this. 0.2 millimeters. I don't really fancy trying to strip 16 meters of this without it breaking millions of times. But what I do have is a reel of this tinned copper wire. It's a little bit thicker, as in twice as thick, a little bit sturdier, but it fits through the holes in the PCBs just fine. And rather than trying to strip 16 meters worth of this, we will be using this for the other connections in this, but I think running this up through all of the connections is going to be a lot easier than trying to strip and then use this very delicate stuff. But of course your mileage may vary, and you're probably better at stripping this sort of fragile bird's nest of wire. Also trying to straighten this out is going to be interesting and fun. So they probably have provided enough wire to do it this way. They seem to have provided more than enough of everything else. But seeing as I have this, I'm going to use this. It's going to be much easier. So before we run these lines all the way up, it's going to be a lot easier to have the access to the underneath of this board, so I'm just going to separate out the interconnect board from the main PCB. There we go. So we come to the actual sticking of these individual nylon or fiberglass fibers into this interface circuit board. For this I'm going to use super glue. This just happens to be some industrial grade super glue. Just happens to be what I have. Hot melt glue might work. I wouldn't be as confident, you might need a bit more of that. But this is not the only thing that's going to support this. There are also, as you can see, little through holes, plated through holes next to each of these fibers. There's actually a wire that goes up to all of the rings from each of those points as well. So there's sort of 2 points of support or contact there. So I've just done one, as you can see here, as a trial to see if this method would work. According to the instructions, they say to drop a couple of drops of glue on the top side and let that fix it. But I'm quite concerned that the glue may end up filling that plated through hole, and so I've come up with a slightly different way to be able to just put a drop of glue on the end there, and then by twisting it I can bring it back just till it's not quite flush, and then just let that set up and go off without hopefully disturbing it. I may be able to do another one while that's doing setting up. Oh, that came out a lot quicker. And we'll just let those set up and then work our way around the rest of them. So now the glue is set up on these fibers. We're now threading up these wires through these little holes, and as you can see I've already done 2 just so that I could have a little bit of a practice before trying to show you what I'm only just learning myself. So these wires go up through these plated through holes, and then they go up through little plated through holes in every ring, and they just need a little bit of guidance to get through them all. It's slightly fiddly and it is a bit time consuming, this. And yes, there are 16 of these wires to go up. And we can just solder this end in and do it from the top because it's just I'm right-handed and it's easier. So you just make sure that you pull through just beyond the end of these white fibers, and then you've got enough. And it's very much that again and again and again until they're all done. So we've got all of the fibres and wires in place. What I've done as well, which you may be able to see just at the bottom, I've put in some of these little spacers, brass spacers, that were spare in the kit. At least I think they're spare, we'll see. But just for the moment, it keeps the pins of these headers from being damaged as I fumble about with this, trying to get the spacings and everything else done for that. What I've done actually to help me with spacing these rings of LEDs is that I've created a couple of 3D printed spacer bars. These have an identical profile to the tips of the LEDs themselves, so that these can fit in the LED. And of course it doesn't matter which way up they are because they've got the profile on both sides. These were Mark 1 editions. I then went and made some fancy editions, same size but with these little tangs on the end and with a little corner, so that they can actually push together and lock to form a spacing, an arrangement. For some of the very smaller rings of LEDs, there may not be enough room to get two or more in parallel, so that gives the option that we can do one going crossways and then the other one which goes into it. Automatically aligns, doesn't matter which way up. So the link for these, for the Thingiverse page for these, will be in the description below. So in order to first get this going, we have to space the first ring off the main PCB, or the Interconnect PCB, and then the instructions say to just solder up all the way around and then glue the fibres in 4 or 5 places. It doesn't say to actually glue every single one of them, which is a good thing. That would take a lot of glue, but they all have to be soldered. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this ring is seated down and then solder up in just a couple of places first of all. This is a very tall and slightly unstable structure now, so you just have to be a little bit careful. I'm just going around doing just a few joints. Just to start with, and then I can come around and do all of them. Not always easy to work out where you started and where you ended. So if you super glue this first and then solder it, you'll only do that once, because the fumes you get off heated super glue, not very nice. That should do. So now that I've got quite a few of these done, in fact we're now up to, we've only got 5 of the larger rings left. This is actually standing on the floor now for access. But I've now got into a rhythm with these, and using the little jigs that I've made up just makes things so much easier. I find that putting them in just like this to form sort of 3 points of contact, and you can press down the next ring, and then we're able to come in and just solder up just 3 places just around where these legs are. And this is a bit awkward to film and do at the same time. So that's the first one done. Move on round. The second one. The good thing is, because you're only just soldering up 3 joints sort of equally spaced around, if it hasn't gone completely to plan, if they're not exactly aligned, it's very easy then to make an adjustment. I also have been leaving off actually gluing each level of rings, because there is some sort of natural twist with these nylon fibres. So I wanted to get them all the rings put in place, then I can hold it rigidly in the position that I want it to be upright, and then I'm able to glue it, and the glue will set up, and hopefully the tower will be strong and vertical. Hopefully, that's the plan anyway. Yeah, once the 3 joints are done, you're able to just pull out these little spacers, and then we can come in and just go around all of these individually. So we've managed to get to the top of all of these larger rings of LEDs. So now we can trim off the tops of this fibre and also these copper wires as well. So what we have to do, we actually have to glue in one of these sections of fibreglass rod into this hole, which will be the supports then for the smaller top LED sections. So we'll see if we can do this without sticking ourselves to it. And then we just have to position it and wait for the super glue to go off. That saves me having to hold it. So while the glue sets up on that fibre, let's turn our attention to actually wiring the interconnections between these 3 sets of LED rings or PCBs. Now to do this, we're going to start having to use the wire that they supply with the kit. It's just single core, quite fine wire, and it's all one colour and pretty much all in a tangled bundle. So we need two pieces approximately a metre long, which is what I've got here. And these will connect to this bottom board. And then rather than using this very fragile thin wire to connect between the three boards, I've got some more of this tinned copper wire that I've been using on the rest of it. So what I'm going to do first of all, I've stripped too much on the end of this, so I'll just clip that down a bit. What I'm going to do is pop this in one of these. And then pop this thicker one in from the top. And it should fit. I have had both of them in there. There we go. And then we can solder that up. We can try and solder that up. So, there we go. The other one. Now, as you can see, these are marked up on the silk screen for plus and minus, but we've only got white coloured cable. So once I've assembled this, these three, I will come back and colour code or make some sort of an indication as to which of these white leads is positive. So now we just need to make sure that we get the positive on the same side. I've cut these wires way too long. As you can see, we've got it in the right polarity. And then for these two, these are a bit of a pain. I should have started with these two. But such is life. Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit trickier because I've got to clip this one first. Note to anybody else building this, start with this top PCB. That should hopefully be approximately the same height. Right, we need to tin the end of these tinned copper wires. It's hard to do this while filming. The camera definitely gets in the way. That's looking a bit banana shaped. So we'll just, I think this lead was just a little bit too long. That should hopefully do it. There we go. Still slightly banana shaped, but hopefully better than nothing. So with these wires here, what I'm going to do is, rather than just using a marker that can rub off, I'm going to tie a knot in the positive, and I'm going to tie a knot at both ends of it. So this will remind me that the positive is the one with the knot in it. So there's one at the end, and I'll actually put one part way up as well. These wires are going to be threaded all the way down the middle of this whole tower. So I've just put this on in place, and we've got one of our little spacers, but as you can see it's still a bit too tall. Probably need to take about ½ an inch off of that. So just take that off the top. It's a fibreglass type material, this. Let's just keep this on so it does tend to splinter. There we go. That's how we do it. Switcher. On both sides. Don't forget that. Canton. So I might cut that short again, rather than have this little piece coming up the middle. Not exactly looking very good. So I reckon probably cutting off the same amount again. And then we just glue it in place. So while that dries up, I think that may well do it for this particular episode. I know the actual video of this will probably be a little bit shorter than normal, which might be a blessed relief for some. But actually the construction of this has taken quite a long time to do. In the next video I'm going to be starting to wire up all of these rings as we wire it down to the interconnect board. So there's 3 connections, extra connections need to be made on each of these 32 rings down to the main interconnect board. So that'll be for the next one. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.